Yes, hello?
Hello. Hi. This is Pregia again
Yes.
from Outlook Magazine in Delhi.
Yes.
Are you still driving?
I actually parked, so it's okay.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said I actually parked, so it's okay. I can do it now. I
Okay,
can talk
great.
now. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
I've been reading the news about the Gandhi statue,
Yes.
and I understand that the university has agreed to shift it out of the university at last.
Mhm.
So, just wanted to know because, I'm also told that they have installed two guards at the statue site and, it's pretty confusing. I'm trying to make sense of what's going on right now.
Right.
Um, yeah, so that's basically the first thing that I wanted to know. What's happening right now? Where is that movement right now? It seems very quiet.
Right. Yeah, it's been very quiet. There was a statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that they would do the moving. But then I also heard through the grapevine that wasn't any type of official thing, that it would be moved to some
Mm-hmm.
IT center still in Accra. So, that one isn't official and we're not, completely sure. But I was told it was a reliable source that's saying that. There are two guards posted to the statue 24/7. So I've actually seen
Mm-hmm.
some of the guards there. I passed by maybe about 3 or so days ago. The statue is still there, as are the guards. So that's what's going on as of now. But the students and the faculty, now that they are familiar with Gandhi's early life and what he did fighting the Zulus and at the Durban post office, and then also they're familiar with his
Mm-hmm.
later life in terms of some of his let me say, conflicts with Dr. Ambedkar, some of, disenfranchisement of the Dalits who were trying to get the double vote, his fast to the death, the Pune Pact. So now they're also familiar with,
Mm-hmm.
his later life. So generally, people, all they knew about Gandhi prior to this was, the Gandhi movie. But, now people are starting to actually
Mm-hmm.
read scholarship, Arundhati Roy, G.B. Singh, Desai, and Vahed, all Indian scholars who have gone, much further into Gandhi beyond the hagiographies. So people are, now that they know, they are not happy with Gandhi at all.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So what does this what does this mean? Will this do you have any word from the university administration on when they will move the statue? Because it seems a little odd, really, because even those who want the statue to stay have always argued that he is a sort of messenger of peace and brotherhood and so on, and to have two guards stationed there, it doesn't make sense, right?
Right.
It just doesn't make sense even for those who want the statue there. What do you think? Isn't it ironic?
I think the world is upside down. I'm not sure if you've been following, but in India, there was a man from Congo, Mr. Olivier, who was bludgeoned to death in broad daylight. There have been attacks against African students. We haven't heard the government outcry about any of these things, real life human beings who are being killed and murdered. And that's the continental Africans who are there. That's before we even talk about the Dalits, the Dravidians, scheduled tribes, other scheduled castes who are brutalized, raped, burned alive on a daily basis. We haven't heard anything from the government. And, at the university, we're supposed to be a research institute, so we should know about these, current events that are going on here and there in India, but we don't hear anything. But what we have are guards stationed 24/7 to protect an inanimate object. They are protecting an inanimate object when real life human beings are being killed, and that's been the case. In the forward to Arundhati Roy's book, she gave the statistics that in 2014 there were over 47,000 documented incidents against the Dalits who are there. Now those are only ones who could get up the confidence to go to the police without thinking that was going to get them burned alive. But we have no recognition. And, people don't even know about these types of things, so that's part of it. But once you do know, that we should do better. But, I think another part of it is one of my colleagues said that actually there are two things. Dr. Desai, who's in South Africa, he wrote the South African Gandhi, Stretcher Bear of Empire. His own take on it was this is an example of neo-colonialism dressed up as anti-imperialism. So they put Gandhi out there as a symbol of anti-imperialism. But, we really have to think about what are we selling. And my other colleague said, when you are willing to sell your soul for a bowl of porridge, then it pretty much compromises what you can say and how you can say it. So if you find yourself dependent on whoever, whether it's India or China or America or the UK, then, your principles are the first things to be sacrificed. And, for those of us who are, in teachers there at the university, it's a thing of, all right, Gandhi, he's been put out there as a symbol of peace and so forth and so on. But we are supposed to have some type of principles about being about truth, about knowledge, higher principles than, okay, it's a good hagiography, so let's just let it stand. We have a responsibility to our own students to let them know what the truth is. And then if they decide that, we don't care that he called us 1 degree removed from an animal, half heathen, savage, kafir, and everything else you can imagine, let's just go along with the good story. The other part of it is thinking, why are the people who colonized us, who enslaved us, why are they giving us this guy as a hero? Perhaps there's something going on here. Perhaps he wouldn't be a model for us. Perhaps we should look to African models who may tell us what we need to do and how we need to do it.
Okay, so basically, if I'm getting it right, it's very difficult to accept what Gandhi said. The guys who want the statue to stay feel that he had changed views over time.
That's because they don't know anything about. Just really quick, they're saying that because they haven't read anything about Gandhi. They haven't done a drop of research about Gandhi. They thought Gandhi was good, and they were guessing that perhaps he changed. So they started painting themselves into a corner because they haven't read what Congress and Gandhi have done to the untouchable. They should read that cover to cover if they want a view. They should read Arundhati Roy's Introduction to Annihilation of Caste. They should read what the Dalit people themselves say about Gandhi, how he, put on the staff to the death. They don't know anything about Gandhi. But the good thing is that, they're saying they want the statue to stand, but really they're helping us out because with their lack of research, with their weak argumentation, they've actually driven people to our side in droves. Because people are saying we don't want to be associated with these people who are completely ignorant on the issues. Let's go with the people who actually know what they're talking about. So somewhere when we were doing the petition, we got to around 800 signatures. And then they came out with their so-called Gandhi Must Stand thing. Between that time and now, they drove us at least 1,000 additional signatures for even when things were starting to wane off. So they're actually more a part of our movement than they know, because they're showing people what not to do. Don't be a weak researcher who doesn't know anything about Gandhi and just try to guess that he changed over time without doing a drop of research. We're supposed to be an institute of higher learning. Anything we say should be based on facts, and they don't have any facts, and it's very obvious that they don't know what they're talking about.
Okay, but Gandhi is very controversial in India as well, and he's even more controversial now because we have a government that does not think of Gandhi as the great leader. They think of him as someone who was part of a party that caused India's partition and a sort of permanent divide between communities here, between the Hindus and Muslims. So yes, there is something to be said for having an icon. Even anyone who analyze will turn out to be a false icon. I mean, knowledge and facts can take us only so far, right? Beyond point, every historical figure is in some ways not perfect. So how do you look at that? Maybe what Gandhi represents right now could be useful in some ways.
No, not for African people. He may be useful for upper caste Hindus who are intent on, burning the Dalits, raping them. The Kirlanji massacre, all of these massacres that have gone on throughout the decades, one after the other. At one point in time, I used to follow the Indian news, and at one point in time, every week, I was getting news about another woman who was burned alive. I hope you're following. That's now if the upper caste Hindus need a champion, they should look no further than Gandhi. But for us as African people, in the 50s there was what they call the Clark Doll study, and in it there were young black children, 3 and 4 years old. They hadn't even been to school yet, and they were given dolls to choose from, a white doll and a black doll. They asked them, what is the smart doll? They said the white doll. They said, what is the beautiful doll? They said the white doll. Which one is the good doll? They said the white doll. Everything good. Then they asked them, which one is the bad doll? They said the black doll. Which one is the stupid doll? They said the black doll. Which one is the ugly doll? The black doll. Then they finally they asked them, which doll looks like you? The children had to hesitate, and then eventually they reluctantly said, oh, I guess I look like the black doll. This is talking about the psychological effects of having heroes who don't look like you. When you go to the movies and you're seeing Superman, you're seeing X-Men, you're seeing all these white, heroes, what does it do to your psychology as an African to say that the bottom of the bottom, the scum of the earth, any Eurasian is better than your best African? What does that do to your psychology? And then what does that do to your society? Now, what we're saying is Gandhi, and let's go beyond his words. People try to get caught up on his words, saying he said we're Kafirs, and he said that we're savages. But what were his actions? When he was in South Africa, he was the reason that the Durban post office had this segregated new entrance for the Indians. I hope you're following. He fought on behalf of the British against the Zulus in the Bambata Rebellion. And then even after that, he again championed the British fighting against the Zulus. That was in 1906. And then after he had his so-called Brahmacharya vow, he again exhorted the Indians to fight on behalf of the British. In this book by G.B. Singh and Tim Watson, they have the book on Gandhi under cross-examination. They even go into how he gave these 4 different testimonies about the so-called Peter Maritzburg train incident, and they all contradict each other as any lie would. And one, he says, oh, I went into the waiting room, there was no one there. And the next time he said, I went into the waiting room, there was someone there. Then he says, oh, I was thrown off by a police constable. Then the next one he says, no, it was a railway worker. The whole story is a fraud, and Gandhi himself is a fraud. Now we can say, should we just take the good fraud, whatever? And this is, let's also come to, you had this satyagraha that was done by the Dalits, led by Dr. Ambedkar. Now, when it went to court, Gandhi fought against the Dalit people. These are actions. These aren't words. These are Gandhi's actions. So beyond even his words, which are problematic, his actions, this fast to the death that resulted in the Pune Pact, is an action, not a word. So that is even what we should concentrate on. The other side, they try to say, oh, he changed his words later on. We should see the consistency of his actions from the beginning of his life all the way to the end of his life, fighting against the black people in Africa and then fighting against the black people in India. And we should base what we should do on that. And then beyond that, we should recognize that our heroes are better for us than the worst of the Indians, the worst of the Europeans, the worst of the Americans. We have to have our own heroes. Otherwise, all the problems that we see around us, we should not look anywhere but ourselves, because we haven't shown our children that they have someone to look up to who looks like them.
Okay, I'm loud and clear. I totally get you. Okay. So, there was, I spoke to a few students from your university, and they also mentioned a Pan-African student debate competition which took place last year. Mm-hmm. I believe it was in your university, but it was in Ghana nevertheless. And that there were South African students there, and the students were very impressed by how engaged the students were and how conscious they were of the rights and of ongoing political happenings. Is Ghana University of Ghana something like that? Are the students learning from each other from different universities? now to sort of speak up for their rights? Is there something new? Is what I'm trying to understand.
Well,
and does the debate that faced last year have, does it play a positive role in getting students involved?
Okay, the climate on campus right now, when I walk through campus, students come up to me and they shake my hand. Students I don't know, I haven't talked, I don't know them from anywhere. They come to shake my hand and say, Gandhi must fall. Gandhi must fall. They just know me from, okay, Gandhi must, they don't even know my name. They say, yes, Doc, Gandhi must fall. That's one. Now, if you go online, the video is already up. You can look for Why Gandhi Must Fall Complete. That's the name of the video. It's on YouTube. Why Gandhi Must Fall Complete. And that was myself helping students prepare for a debate on the whole Gandhi issue. It's a moot point now because the statue is going to go. But all the same, myself, I was helping those who were trying to get prepared for the Gandhi Must Fall side. Another colleague was trying to do something with Gandhi Must Stand, but again, he has no information on Gandhi. He hasn't read anything about Indian history, Gandhi specifically. He doesn't know Ambedkar. He doesn't know Rajshekar. He doesn't know anything about, any of this stuff. He's just trying to hold on to a false idol. So anyway, he was trying to get the other side prepared. So you can look at that, but basically the climate on campus is that students even came to me and said, you know what, we want to get your expertise on this. And, I've read extensively about the Indian situation. I was even familiar with, there's a scholar named Ranoko Rashidi who dealt with the global African presence. So he deals with the ancient black population there, going to the Dravidians, and then he goes all the way up dealing with the Dalit Panthers, so forth and so on. So I understudied him for about 3 years. So that was really my introduction. He was the one who told me read Rajshekar, Dalit, Black Untouchables of India. Back in the 90s, Dr. John Henrik Clark, a historian, he was giving a lecture on Martin Luther King. And in it, he said that if Martin Luther King knew who Gandhi was, he would have chosen an African hero. And he mentioned Akhenaten, the original Prince of Peace, the founder of monotheism as we know it. But of course, Martin Luther King never learned about it. He learned about Gandhi. Now, he said he would have chosen that, and he used very strong words. He said because Gandhi was a fraud, a faker, and a liar. So for me hearing that, I said, wow, that was new. Let me go find out why he's calling Gandhi a fraud, a faker, and a liar. And that's where I started to become familiar with Gandhi back in the 1990s. So just on campus, even professors older than me came up to me and said, all we knew about Gandhi was the movie. They didn't even know that the movie was, 1/3 financed by the government of India. You understand? It's not supposed to be historical. It's not supposed to be real. It's a hagiography paid for as, and right now in Ghana, we have all these Indian soap operas, Kum Kum Baja and whatever. They translated into indigenous languages. Now, all of these things are to give India a foothold into Africa, a foothold into Ghana. But we have to be very circumspect in terms of looking out for our own interests as African people. Whether we're looking to the west, whether we're looking to the east, we need to look to ourselves. India's GDP is barely over Ghana's GDP. Botswana's is almost double ours. Now, if we're looking for our own interests, we should look to our own brothers and sisters who are Africans before we're looking all over the world and selling our souls and selling our rear ends to them. So this is what I have to say about that. But the students are very proactive in terms of getting this information now.
Okay, are they really subjecting you to Indian soap operas?
They are subjecting us to Indian soap operas. And when we say Indians,
just for enduring that, I would say, no power to you. It's terrible.
And these are the, what Gandhi used to talk about. He said to the British, we're all Indo-Aryans, right? He had this Indo-Aryan alliance. Now, what we get in the soap operas are these very white-skinned, Indo-Aryan-looking Indians. Whereas if you go to southern India, as you very well know, you have people who are blacker than any Ghanaian you'll ever see. You understand? Whose features are more prototypically African than you could ever imagine. You have all these groups down there.
Even even Indians don't want to watch Indian serials. We watch Pakistani serials.
Right.
That's a fact. So I mean, this is terrible.
So this is really India getting its foot in the door and colonizing the minds of African people. Turning us to the point where we're saying, you know what, the worst of the worst Indian heroes are better than the best of the best African heroes. And I gave another talk. The video should be up in the next week. Myself and Prof. Adamako Ampofo, she was the lead author on the petition. And, we just went through all of these different images. Now, the very first book written in the history of the world is the Instructions to Ptah-hotep. That's the oldest book. We haven't heard of his. This is African people. This was an African who wrote the book. The students, none of the students in the room had ever heard his name, but all of them heard of Shakespeare. You understand? We went through a list of about 10 different Africans. Imhotep, the world's first multi-genius, the one who was the architect of the Step Pyramid, who wrote the Edwin Smith Papyrus on medicine, who wrote the papyrus on mathematics, the world's first multi-genius. None of the students had ever heard his name, but all of them heard of Einstein. None of them heard of Akhenaten, but all of them heard of Gandhi. Now, again, we're talking about the psychosocial effects of this brainwashing, indoctrination, that the end result is no one wants to be African. Everyone wants to be some type of Eurasian. And I don't separate Europe from Asia because it's all one landmass. Now, it makes all of us want to become an Indian. It makes us want to become a British, want to become French, want to become German. This is why people are going out of their women are trying to buy Indian hair. This is why women are trying to bleach their skin to look like what they see on these soap operas. So there's an economic impact that goes against African people. There's a psychological impact that goes against African people. This leads to African people hurting each other because they think this black person is worthless as I am. So if I do something against this black person who's worthless, who cares? However, here's this white person. Here in Ghana, all the children will run down the street, and they have a saying here in Ghana. They say, if you're going to church and you see a white man, you can turn around because you've already seen God. You don't need to go to church again. So this is the I don't know what I could call it other than insanity, the mental instability that is going on in Ghana right now, and in no small part to the fact that we don't have our own heroes and sheroes to look up to. All we have is Gandhi, who called us 1 degree removed from an animal, savage, heathen, so forth and so on. And this is the best that we can do for ourselves. This has an impact on our children and our descendants, so someone has to speak up now. Otherwise, our descendants will say all of our ancestors should be cursed for allowing this statue to be here. In 100 years, that statue will not be on Ghanaian soil, I guarantee you. I will be long gone, but someone will have some sense at some point in time in Africa, and the statue will be gone sooner or later.
Does the university you work for, does it give you any trouble over this issue?
No, not yet.
Or is it...
Not yet. This is the thing. I have a pretty good, I'm new. I finished my PhD in 2012 at the same University of Ghana, and I started work in 2014. Now, in 2012, I won the Vice Chancellor's Award for the best PhD thesis, right? In 2016, I won the Provost Award for the best publication in the entire university. So, it would have to be a lot of pretext for them to get me out because I've gotten all these awards just in a very short time that I've been there. Next year, I'll probably get another award because I have another paper that is coming out, and I think it's also very good. Some of my reviewers said that people will be citing this thesis for the next few decades because it's that groundbreaking. So, if I start to get any trouble, it will certainly be because of the Gandhi thing. It definitely will not be because of my scholarship. It will be certainly political. But at this point, I haven't had any type of blowback. And even people who are part of administration have said to me, privately, we are on your side. You're standing for what's right, but we just can't come out because we're part of administration. And even people in the government have said as much. So, I think people have some degree of principles, but, when money gets involved, politics gets involved, it makes people's principles become compromised and they can't say the things that they want to say. Because I'm not getting money from India or from anywhere else, I say what I think is right and what is true and let the cards fall where they may.
Do the guards carry any kind of weapon? I mean, are they threatening or, in any way?
They just have sticks.
Because it's such...
they just have they have nightsticks. So, and
what did you say?
Say again?
What kind of sticks did you say?
Nightsticks, like what the police officers have. These types of nightsticks, that's what they carry. So it's just for bludgeoning. It's not guns.
And handcuffs? Do they carry handcuffs?
No, they don't carry handguns. So these are for the most part retired military, retired army. So they'll just carry like a stick or a baton, something of that nature. But when I went there, one of my former students is in the media. She wanted to come there and take a picture of the statue. They told her, no, you can't take a picture. There's a lot of trouble around the statue. We're protecting the statue, so forth and so on. And for her, she was so mind blown that here are two real life human beings who are protecting an inanimate object. When even on our own campus, there was about a year and a half ago, there were rapes that went on campus. You understand? Real life human beings who are being accosted on campus, yet and still an inanimate object has two guards assigned to it. I don't know what to tell you, but you can come up with your own conclusion about this. The world is upside down. Things that are sensible are not in fashion. Things that are insane are pushed up to the top, and this is what we're working with. But that's why we're in academia, because we're trying to change these things around.
Okay, and you want the statues to be shipped back to India where it came from?
That would be fine. If it, even in India, I think I would have a problem if it goes to a Dalit area or a scheduled tribes area. Anywhere in India it should be to where the upper caste Hindus are, where the RSS is, where, these fundamentalists, Indo-Aryan, seeing themselves types of people. That's where it should go, or it should go into the ocean. It should go somewhere where he is not calling the people who have it animals. You understand? Where it's not where he fought against their rights. So again, if it's going to be put in India in a Dalit area, that one is as problematic as it being here in an African area, because Gandhi fought against the rights of black people, both in Africa and also there in India as well. So, but at the very least, it should not be on African soil. At the very least, once it leaves African soil, I don't have so much of a say. I'll leave it to Rajshekar and others.
Yeah, Dalits would probably not want that statue around. Many Dalits would not want that around.
At all.
So, yeah.
And the other part that we were even saying is that it's not a Ghana versus India thing, because there are plenty of Indians who we would look up to, like Dr. Ambedkar. If you actually read Annihilation of Caste, if you read what Gandhi, what Congress and Gandhi have done to the untouchables, he himself was drawing linkages between Gandhi and Lincoln, where Gandhi was just trying to abolish untouchability without a fundamental change in the status of the Dalit people. And he said that's just like Lincoln in the U.S., who said, he's just out to keep the Union together. So whether he frees any, whether he doesn't free any, whether he frees half and then enslaves half, he doesn't care. He's about keeping the Union together. That's a similar thrust to Gandhi, and saying, you know what, we don't want the Dalits to go out of the Hindu fold. So regardless, if we have to capitulate to the Muslims, if we have to capitulate to the Sikhs and give them their own electorate, whatever, fine. But we cannot allow these Dalits to go out of the Hindu fold. And that is even why the Pakistanis, there was a woman just a few weeks ago who I saw, I asked her, was she from India? With vitriol, she said, Pakistan, with anger. And I understood why she had the anger, because even the partition of India is seen as being part of this whole, what Arundhati Roy calls this whole crisis of demography, and trying to make sure the upper caste Hindus are in the majority and make sure that they have this. So they say we're even willing to partition India to get the Muslims out so that we can have the Indian majority. And now we're looking at India with nuclear weapons, Pakistan with nuclear weapons at each other's throats. Just a few weeks ago, I saw on the border that Indian soldiers were shooting at Pakistanis. There was a shootout, and all of this is due to our Lord of Peace, Gandhi. How much peace do we have when he has brought about so much suffering? He said, you know what? Let's let the Dalits be under the trusteeship of the, Savat Singh, his Harijan Savat Singh. Now, we are going to be trustees to these people who have been murdering us and killing us, and the end result are decades and decades of massacres and massacres and massacres. I don't know if you followed this one. There was this group of pro-Indo-Aryan fundamentalists who were whipping people in public on camera because they said that they slaughtered a cow. You understand? These are the things that go on every single day in India. You had this big thing about a rape on a bus a few years ago, but in that same year, you had over 2,000 Dalit women who were raped. And those are only the ones that were reported. We don't even know about the ones who were too scared to report because they knew that reporting it would get them dismembered, like the Kerlanji massacre. So this is what we're dealing with.
All right. It's very clear to me. If you don't mind, before I follow the story, I might get in touch again and just if I have to clarify something. There is one thing you said which I did not understand. I'm sorry. Can you just you mentioned two writers, two people who wrote books, and you attended their lectures in 90s, or you read the book. I didn't get that time.
So one is...
If you could get the names you mentioned.
I'll give you the name. One is Dr. Runoko Rashidi, Runoko Rashidi, Rashidi. And this is a scholar, and his main focus is on the African presence in Asia. And he goes back to ancient times, back to the Dravidians, to the Shang dynasty of China, to the Sumerians, so forth and so on, all the way up to modern times. And he shows images of carvings, the original images of Buddha that are shown with black, that are shown with full, thick lips, that are shown with natty hair. He goes all the way to those types of things with the black Buddha. And he was one of the ones who sensitized me to the ongoing situation of the Dalits, some of the issues around Gandhi. And the other scholar's name is Dr. John Henrik, Henrik Clark, C-L-A Clark, C-L-A-R-K-E. So it's like regular Clark, but with an E on the end. And he was giving a lecture, and it was a video that I saw of the lecture where he was talking about Martin Luther King. And he said that if Martin Luther King knew who Gandhi was, he would never have chosen Gandhi as a hero. He would have looked to Africa, to someone like Akhenaten, who was a pharaoh from ancient Egypt, who erected these boundary stela in his new city that he created called Akhetaten. And at those boundaries, he said that he would never go beyond those boundaries. He was dedicating his whole life to worshiping this monotheistic deity called Aten, and he outlawed the worship of any other deities. And, he was known as a very peaceful ruler who neglected expanding boundaries like his predecessors did just so that he could devote himself to religious practice. So he said that would have been a model for Martin Luther King if he was looking for someone who was about peace, as opposed to Gandhi, who supported every major war in his lifetime. And that is in no small part the reason why he was rejected for the Nobel Prize on 5 different occasions. He fought in the Boer War. He fought in the Zulu War. He advocated fighting in World War I. In World War II, he said Hitler isn't so bad. He wrote to Hitler calling Hitler his good friend, and it's not pretense that he's calling him a friend. And all of that goes back to his view that they're all Indo-Aryans. Sanskrit, Latin, Greek, all of them come from the same thing. So therefore, they're all Indo-Aryans. So it's no coincidence that he's going to call Hitler a friend. He's going to tell the Jews to hop off of a cliff or to, offer themselves up to the sword so that their deaths can actually be meaningful. All of that makes sense when you understand that Gandhi saw himself as an Indo-Aryan.
Absolutely. Okay, I got it now. Thanks for your guidance. Thanks a lot, and best of luck.
Okay, no problem. And look up that video. It was the one for the students that I mentioned, Why Gandhi Must Fall Complete.
Yes,
and you can also hear some of the students' inputs on it as well.
I will do that. I have been speaking to a few students, maybe 3 or 4, and I will be in touch with you before I file once again, and especially if I want to clarify something.
Okay, no problem.
Thanks a lot. Have a good weekend.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.